Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing important topics. Tonight we'll be highlighting two important sectors. The state is giving much priority according to the president directives. We have also good news that were announced by the Prime Minister yesterday. Two important sectors are of high priority given to them and given to the projects that would be supported by the state. The state also is supporting the private sector and very much into attracting foreign direct investments, of course, local and foreign direct investments. Many measures have been taken in this respect. Yesterday, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli announced that Egypt has recorded the highest ever foreign direct investment in a single quarter during July to September 2022, amounting to $3.3 billion. The Prime Minister also confirmed that the state has been committed to all its obligations and has paid all its installments, whether loans, interests, or any other. Also, Dr. Madbouli referred to Egypt's story of success yesterday, which was the issuance of Islamic Sukuk for the very first time, despite all the reservations on the subject because of the local and international challenges. He also, he continued that Egypt announced that it needs from $1 billion to $1.5 billion, and Egypt's request was covered by more than 4 times the amount it called for, as the volume of coverage reached $4.2 billion. This, as the Prime Minister has said, that the industrial and agricultural sectors are topping the government's priorities based on the directives, as I said at the very beginning, of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and that the government continues to take measures to promote the Egyptian private sector and the foreign direct sector at large, and said that the state is doing everything it can to help the private sector contribute to the Egyptian economy. This exactly what we will be focusing on tonight in our episode with our guest, Dr. Mohamed Roshdy, Professor of Economy, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. First of all, good evening for you and our audience, and I would like to thank you and the Daily Debate team for this kind invitation.
Pleasure is ours. Before we delve into our discussion, let me first have the top story of the day. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi sent congratulatory cables to Saudi Arabia's King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on the occasion of the Saudi Founding Day. President Sisi expressed best wishes for Saudi Arabia and stressed the depth of the historical relations between both countries and the two peoples. The President also wished Saudi Arabia more progress, success, and prosperity. Before we move on with our discussion, let's first have this quick report. And Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli, Egypt is able to fulfill all its foreign obligations. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said that the whole world is suffering from the rise in commodity prices, explaining that the government is required to provide 1 million job opportunities every year. Dr. Madbouli said that the government has dedicated all its potencies to 2 priority sectors, the industrial and agricultural sectors, as the state has taken effective measures to encourage industry to grow and expand and to deepen the coming state. During a press conference, Dr. Madbouli said that the cabinet approved a number of facilities to all industrial projects by giving them a grace period of 6 months and has handed 13 golden licenses to industrial investors, noting that this measure will continue for the upcoming period. He explained that in order to support their farmers, the state has increased its support for their strategic crops, including the prices of a number of crops, which are wheat, maize, soybeans, and sunflower crops, to ensure that price would be the lowest for the farmer at the time of harvest, and that the prices of the crop will be determined by the stock exchange price the same day. The Prime Minister said that upon the instructions of the President, the government is working on developing a strategy to fight corruption. He revealed the support, grants and social protection allowances rose to £172 billion compared to last year. He said that 3.5 million decisions were issued to treat patients to state expenses. The Premier noted that the Cabinet's Investment Support Department was able to end 80% of the problems and demands of investors, indicating that net foreign direct investment increased in the first quarter of the current fiscal year to 94% compared to the same period last year. He stressed that Egypt is able to pay all its foreign obligations it owes to international institutions in coordination with the central bank according to their time schedule. He noted that the government could lay other companies to the stock market besides the announced 32 companies to increase the inclusion of the private sector into the economy. He confirmed that plan is currently being put by an economic group that includes the governor of the central bank and the relevant ministers under the supervision of the Prime Minister, and meetings take place on weekly basis to ensure compliance with what was announced. He stressed that it is the state's strategy to increase the participation of the private sector and citizens in the state's public institutions according to the ownership document. Madbouli asserted that there is a number of mechanisms the country follows that goes in full coordination between monetary and financial policy at this stage.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Roshdy, and let's start by reading into the statements of the Prime Minister in the press conference he held yesterday.
Actually, I would like to highlight on main things, which is the first thing, which is the agriculture part, that the government is exerting a great effort to focus on this part and how they will provide the farmers with crops in a good pricing, which is possibly will reflect on the end price for the customer or for the Egyptian citizen, and positively it will reflect on the pricing of essential commodities. And this is one of the most important things that the government and the presidential leadership is focusing on it. This is in addition to the actually the ownership, the state ownership policy document, and how the government will focus on it in a different way, and this is how will help us to bring more FDI to our country, and actually in a nutshell it will help also to give the private sector space to invest and to benefit from a lot of initiatives that the government did in previous months. Actually, one of them, which is the golden license.
Yes,
the gold license.
That is the core and the basic topic Let me here first start with reading into the Prime Minister's statements, because yesterday there was a big press conference in which the Prime Minister has stated lots and lots of facts that Egypt has gone through the past period, and he spoke about priorities the state is giving. So let me start with what the Prime Minister said, that Egypt has recorded the highest ever foreign direct investment in a single quarter from July till September 2022, for an instant.
Actually, this is I can say it, we are being the fruits of a lot of things. The infrastructure, the mega projects, this help or send a positive messages to the global community and the investors to come and invest. For that reason, we are being the fruit for a lot of projects and a lot of initiatives that the government did actually during the last 8 years, which is reflected positively to increase FDI in the second quarter. Actually, on the first quarter,
second quarter, July to September.
It's July to September, second quarter. Actually, as far as I recall, by $40 million, which is the incremental volume actually, versus the previous year.
3.3 billion in one quarter.
This is the total,
dollars,
the
yes.
incremental increase, which is around
Yes.
40 million.
Yes, indeed, that was that happened in one quarter, but that is very much attributed to certain policies that has been and measures that have been taken by the state, and hence the Prime Minister spoke about how the whole world is really reeling from the rise in commodity prices, and said that the government is required to provide 1 million job opportunities every year. So here he said that the government has dedicated its potencies to two priority sectors, the industrial and the agricultural sector. How do you view how the government has supported those two sectors, particularly in the past period?
Actually, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, you are focusing which is on agriculture and what the other industry, the industrial part?
The industrial sector, yeah.
Okay. In a nutshell, I would like to highlight or to elaborate more for our audience. The GDP structure actually is consisted of three main pillars: the industrial part, agricultural part, in addition to the service part. Okay, and this is the government is, can I say it, they have a strategic vision to enhance our GDP growth. They started with the agriculture part, which is the most important thing, because this is, we called it's something crucial for our nation, for any nation to build and to work in a proper way, and we have to own our food. If we don't own our
daily
food,
bread. Yes,
we couldn't own our decision. You know, for that reason, this is a strategic and strategic initiative. For that reason, the government is doing a lot of things. One of them, they are trying to support farmers in a different ways. They are trying to get crop in a suitable price, and they are doing a lot of facilities through specialized banks also to help farmers, and through the government to help farmers, and this is positively reflected on a lot of essential commodities pricing. And as you know, and our audience, globally the food prices increased, especially after the Ukrainian and Russian war and a lot of things, and globally it increased, and we have a global inflation wave. But here in Egypt we have a different thing, which is the actual commodities and food. It's not increased like global increase. This is due to that we have a lot of strategic initiatives which which is help a lot to keep the pricing in a proper way for the food. In addition to a lot of infrastructure that the government did, which helped the industrial part, which is one of the most important things. And a lot of factories opened, a lot of
complexes, industrial complexes. But before we go into the industry, you spoke about agriculture, and agriculture has been given some priority since years. We've seen the projects, the agricultural projects that the state has been carrying out, with particularly the 4.5 million fidans. This big, huge agricultural projects in which had some phases we have reached. I guess we're on the second phase, and more than 1.5 million fidans were already cultivated. That, I guess, has given a kind of breath-taking during the challenges that have emerged, particularly last year. If I may ask you, how far did the country supported the agricultural sector, particularly in the recent years?
We can measure this easily, and I believe it's in my humble opinion, it is crystal clear for our nation and the global community that the government is doing a lot of things which possibly on the pricing of the essential commodities, which is one part of them, the agriculture things. As you know, and our audience, after the Ukrainian-Russia war, the pricing of a lot of food, especially the essential one, wheat and a lot of things, actually increased. As far as I recall, the increased percentage reached to 40 to 50% in a lot of countries.
Indeed.
But here in Egypt, we have already a strategic vision. You know that we have a strategic store for the essential crops like wheat,
maize, and soybean, and all these.
Which is positively reflected on the pricing of a lot of things. In addition to a lot of initiatives that the government helped to give the farmers the crops in a proper price, which is positively reflected on the end customer or the Egyptian citizen in a proper pricing. We can measure it through the CPI, Consumer Price Index, which indicate for our audience simply indicates the essential product pricing. It's not increased as much as the global increase. For that reason, we have a lot of initiatives that led in a strategic, actually it was a strategic vision to help our nation to have a proper pricing for essential commodities.
Indeed. If we go to industry, and yes, indeed, industry is taking lots and lots of attention, because it has been seeing some measures taken on many levels.
Yes.
Part of that, as you said, respectively, was the infrastructure. And here the president has, during the latest meetings he held with the prime minister and the relevant ministers, for that affirmed the importance of increasing the use of the industrial zones and complexes that Egypt has established during the past few years. How do you view that, and how do you view how that is really reflecting on the Egyptian economy and in supporting such a sector?
Actually, I would like to elaborate more on this point, which is the government has a strategic vision to bring as far as I recall, $40 billion as an FDI in 4 years, with average run rate $10 billion. Accordingly, they did a lot of initiatives to let the investor come and invest in our country. One of them, the infrastructure, the electricity, the solar system. They are qualifying the Egyptian citizen to enhance the education, especially the technical education. A lot of things which is helped to create the industrial zones, and in addition to the government actually did a lot of tax incentive for the investors, in addition to the free trade zones. Those things which is possibly will reflect on our initiative to the Egyptian initiative to bring $40 billion as an FDI in the coming 4 years, and this is possibly reflected on the unemployment rate. As far as I recall, in 2013, all the mega projects and all the initiatives, especially the industrial initiatives and a lot of things, as far as I recall, in 2013, the unemployment rate reached around 13%. Nowadays, it decreased to reach 7.2%, 7.3%, something like that, which is all the initiatives reflected on the Egyptian citizen, decrease the unemployment rate, enhance the GDP structure, in addition to possibly enhance the living standards for the Egyptian citizen.
Number of mechanisms that were really taken in this regard. We're speaking about complete coordination between the monetary and the financial policies in order to be able to support the industrial sector and at the same time attractive foreign direct investors. How do you view coordination between relevant institutions regarding the implementation of those mechanisms on the ground?
Thank you for this good question. Actually, for the first time, we can see easily the harmony between the governmental sector, all the governmental sector, in addition to the private sector, to achieve the Egyptian vision, which is one of them to enhance the living standards for the Egyptian citizen. Actually, we can say that there are a lot of initiatives concerning enhancing the, for example, the GDP structure, especially in the industrial part. One of them, the initiatives for SMEs, the government and the monetary policy, the CBE mainly, the Central Bank of Egypt, and the Ministry of Finance, they are working closely, and there is, I can say, there is a great synergy or harmony between them. They did a lot of initiatives. They financing SMEs with interest rate, different interest rate. This is one of the most important things, in my humble opinion, that SMEs is the most important sector to build the country. We can say it loudly. I can give just a quick example for our audience, which is metaphorically will reflect on how the importance of SMEs. For example, if we have, like, the economy is built metaphorically on two companies, one of them defaulted, what will happen? The entire economy will collapse. But if we have a lot of companies, one of them will default, nothing will happen. Another company will come. For that, which is, we can say it, we shouldn't put all eggs in one basket. ABC investment, you have to diversify your portfolio. Accordingly, the government is doing a lot of initiatives for SMEs, and the different sectors in our country are working closely. The Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance, Central Bank of Egypt, MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, in addition to GAFI, General Authority of Investment. All of them are working together to give a positive signal messages to the global community and bring FDI, which is positively, we can say that it reflected positively on our competitiveness rank. We have, if you would like to invest as an investor, if you would like to invest in any country, you have to see the competitiveness report. Some indicators. Thank you so much. One of them, which is you can get back to the competitiveness report. When you find that Egypt is jump a lot of ranks and its rank enhanced, which is a positive signal that you can invest in this country. This is actually, you can see, we can say that this is a reflection of the harmony and synergy between all sectors in Egypt and the private sector also. For that reason, the government is focusing on the state ownership policy, actually, to get the private sector.
Let's say, I'm just quoting the Prime Minister, when he said that Egypt was really able to fulfill all its foreign obligations, whether on loans, interests, and all that, and that the financial institutions wouldn't have even continued of supporting and working with the Egyptian economy, except if we were on the right track, right?
One of the most important things, which is sustainability. You have to have a sustainable economy.
Exactly.
Let me quote you one of the most important thing. That a lot of people, they are asking if Egypt
was able to fulfill
its obligations.
Yes.
Actually, I will not say yes or no. I will take the international agencies and the international organizations like the IMF, for example. They provided us a loan, and this is based on a complicated assessment, credit assessment. If we couldn't do that, they will not provide us. In addition to a lot of agencies, credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, a lot of things actually
all put us on B, which is stable territory.
Thank you.
Indeed.
And I would like to highlight one of the most important things, which is Egypt is working to absorb the global inflation wave in a proper and efficient way nowadays, and with a lot of tools and with synergy and harmony between a lot of sectors, which is positively reflect on the GDP growth and the inflation rate, which is
important initiatives, as you said, respectively, were really made and were really put for supporting the industrial sector, the production sectors at large. And one of them is that Egypt has adopted a £150 billion initiative to back production sectors, cut loans, interests, and that was, I guess, what we were speaking about, the SMEs. Sorry? Let's watch this report.
The cabinet announced that Egypt will adopt a 5-year initiative worth £150 billion to support the agricultural and industrial production sectors, especially by reducing their loans interests in the face of the repercussions of the global crisis. In a statement, the Cabinet said that the initiative will come into effect after the Cabinet's approval this week. It added that the initiative aims to enhance local production by focusing on priority sectors, especially the industrial and agricultural sectors, in order to achieve the state's developmental and economic goals and increase capabilities of facing the repercussions of global crisis. Minister of Finance Mohamed said the initiative mainly includes reducing interest rates on loans provided to these sectors so that they can face the negative repercussions of the global crisis. Might added that the total value of the proposed initiative is around £150 billion, of which about £140 billion will be allocated for financing working capital operations and around £10 billion will be for financing the purchase of capital goods. He revealed that the amount of credit available to each company will be determined in light of the size of its business and the banking rules in this regard. He stressed that financing will be provided to companies joining the initiative at low interest rate of 11%, provided that the state bears the cost of difference in the interest rate. Mohamed Al-Suwaidi, head of the Federation of Egyptian Industries, the FEI, affirmed that the initiative will suit the largest segment of manufacturers and farmers. For his part, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli affirmed that the government would take all steps that would support the productive sectors, especially regarding industry and agriculture. Madbouli stressed that initiative will be implemented as soon as it is approved by the Cabinet during this week's meeting. Egypt has been implementing steps to support the agricultural and industrial sector amid the global economic crisis that have caused inflation to surge and multi-billion imported goods to be accumulated at Egyptian ports due to shortage of foreign currency. Stock goods worth $1.5 billion were released from Egyptian ports starting from the 1st till the 10th of January, upping the total value of released goods since the start of December to $8.5 billion. This includes more than $613 million worth of goods required for industrial purposes, including food products, primary industrial supplies, and spare parts.
Welcome back, and indeed such initiatives are very much supportive to what we really need at this very particular stage. One other story of success that I spoke about at the very beginning was the sukuk, the issuance of sukuk for the very first time in Egypt's history. And give us the details.
Let me quote you, it's a success story actually. As far as I recall, it was planned to get 1.5 billion.
The maximum.
The maximum. Actually, the coverage reached around $6 billion.
4 times.
4 times
what
actually,
needed,
thank
indeed.
you. Which is positively reflect that one of the most important things, your last question, which is, can Egypt fill or its financial obligation?
Attract all this money, except if it had already committed to all its obligations. Indeed.
How come you can say it's 4 times you are offering? This mean that this is a certificate of trust for the Egyptian economy, which is that we can meet our financial obligation in a proper way, and this is mean also it's a success story for Egypt and which is a reflection actually for the Egyptian efforts and the synergy or harmony between the government, all sectors in the Egyptian government, and the private sector, which is positively reflected that we get 4 times, which in covering the bonds, the foreign currency bonds, which is the sukuk or Islamic bonds. Actually, this is one of the most important things that send a positive signal message, positive signals for the global community that Egypt is on the right track.
And is really putting a lot in order to support the attraction of investments. Right. The world is not rosy, and we are not. We're just part of the world, right? Yes, indeed. All of us hope for peace, we hope for prosperity, we hope for our country, we hope for the whole world.
Sure.
But I have to say here, and I'm quoting the Prime Minister when he said that the whole world is suffering from the rise in commodity prices. From your point of view, of course, Egypt is part of the world, and we are very much affected by 2 years of pandemic and ongoing, and 1 year of war, and how it's really reflected on the supply chain of the whole world. Let me here ask you of how the government is so far dealing with this challenge. We are part of the world.
It comes on the top of my mind when you are saying that Egypt, part of the global economy or the global community.
Mm-hmm.
We can say that also that we are a small, the entire world nowadays is a small city
village.
or a small village.
Indeed, it is.
Thank you. And the inflation, and there is a global inflation wave, and it's different from a country to country how they are dealing, and the government is dealing with this inflation wave. We can see that a lot of countries like USA, the inflation wave, the inflation reached to 9%. This is the first time to reach this, as far as I recall, 40 years ago, to reach 9%, and which is reflected on the interest rate. The Federal increased the interest rate like more than 4 times in the last year. You can see it easily, and how it's a different how each country can face this, and how can it handle it. In Egypt, we have a lot of tools to handle this in a different way. One of them to have infrastructure and bring FDI, mega projects, in addition to focus on low and middle income people through a lot of initiatives.
Low brackets incomes, indeed.
Yes, and the price of commodities. The Egyptian government and the presidential leadership has a strategic vision concerning the essential products, which is we have a store from essential commodities, which is positively reflect on the pricing, but not increased as far as the global community or other countries. In addition to offering crops for farmers in a proper pricing, which is positively affect on the end product or commodity. A lot of those initiatives and things helped our country to have a proper pricing for our commodities, and it increased as we are part of the global community. But it's the increased percentage is better than other countries. You can see easily that in Europe, in the pricing of fuel, in Europe especially the oil and fuel and the food, USA, a lot of countries.
Triple the price.
Yes.
In all those countries. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's very much true.
And
it's,
if you compared our pricing with the
we're
global
seeing lots of
community,
protests in Britain, in France, and
you can
because of
find
that.
our country is cheaper than a lot of countries.
Right. If I may get back to our core and
sorry for interruption, but I recalled something which is one of things that I read it on the newspaper, that one of England citizen preferred to come Egypt during the winter to decrease the price of heating fuel, because
we've
Egypt
seen that on the
is cheaper.
We've seen that on the social
We have actually edge.
Unfortunately, my time is out, but I guess, yes, indeed, we're trying so much to stand before this emerging crisis and the challenges that are facing, that we are facing, indeed, with the whole world. But we're on track, right?
We are on track. And in my humble opinion, our economy will be one of the tiger economies, which is metaphorically, which is will run.
Yes, indeed, hopefully,
Inshallah.
Very much, with God's will. Dr. Mohamed Roshdy, Professor of Economy, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your input here. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode. Next debate will be on Sunday. Many thanks for watching. Good night.